The United States has a population of north of 327 million people. Why do we need more kids? I mean, your party, Senator Tuberville, is the one screaming that 10 million immigrants, which I don't even know that that number even makes any sense because it doesn't, have streamed into the country since Joe Biden has been president. And you're claiming that that's too many people, that if more people come into the southern border, this is some sort of crisis because we've got too many people and we've got no more space and we can't afford more people. But now you're saying we need more kids? Can you explain who's the we and what's the purpose?
Post-millennial. Joy Reid says wanting to have children is part of nationalistic drive towards fascism. I do believe that this election is a litmus test for American tolerance for fascism.
Tim Pool on Timcast IRL just uncovered one of Joy Reid's wildest takes yet. Believe it or not, Joy Reid is out here saying that wanting kids is part of a nationalistic push toward fascism. Yeah, she actually said that. And of course, on Timcast IRL, Tim Pool isn't holding back. He's diving right into Joy Reid's claims that having children somehow promotes a fascist agenda. You know it's going to be good when Tim Pool takes apart this kind of nonsense, and Timcast IRL is where it's all happening. If Joy Reid thinks babies are part of fascism, you're in for a wild breakdown.
That this election is a litmus test for American tolerance for fascism. The elements of fascism are rooted in this nationalistic drive for more babies for the state, for a strongman-driven nation, and a deep sort of state-based religiosity. So I do believe we have a media problem, and we do have some of our media that is leading people toward fascism. The question of America has become too soft and feminine. I think that is it's a fascist litmus test. So this question of whether the society is too soft and feminine, it was alarming to me that a majority of Hispanic Protestants agree, but that's not shocking. Immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country. This is one of the most terrifying things that you've heard a presidential candidate say, because it is straight out of Mein Kampf. 20% of Jewish respondents agree with that, because that's straight out Nazi.
So the majority of Jews don't. By the way, so the majority of Jews don't agree that that's something out of Mein Kampf. To be like 23% agree. You mean a minority? 1/4 of them?
I just want to stress, it's a death cult.
Yeah.
And I'm not being cute, okay? This is not meant to be haha silly. When prominent liberal personalities say it is bad to have kids, there is one simple mathematical equation you need to understand. If a society does not have kids, the society ceases to exist in a few generations.
Yep.
I've said this 100 times before. I mean, they just hate the family. That's all this is.
But
So what
she's
is
about
just mean
babies.
here?
They hate babies.
No, I know, exactly. And the safest place for a baby to exist is within the confines of a loving marriage, in a productive, happy, healthy family. They hate that. They can't stand that. The fact that she says having more children for the state, that just shows you where her head's at. That's what she thinks the purpose of children are. So when people say they want to have more children, she goes, more kids for the state? No, children belong to their families.
But this is the same kind of ideology that says homeschooling is bad, like not wanting to go. So it's kids for the state if they're allowed to be educated and controlled by the state. But if you just want to have them because you believe your culture is good, you believe your family is good, you think that America's a nice country and you don't want its birth rates to collapse, then you're a fascist.
Well, yeah, politically they're anti-family because a strong family is the greatest threat to a strong state. They're anti-human because, they just hate God and they hate everything God created and they hate everything God designed. Humans are made to work a certain way. Life works best when we kind of follow the way God designed it and planned it. And leftists just resent that. It's all about wanting to be your own God.
Whoa. Did Joy Reid really just call having kids fascist? What do you think? Is she totally off the rails, or is there something deeper here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're like me, wondering how anyone could twist family values into this, make sure to hit that like button. Let's keep the conversation going because it's only getting crazier on Timcast IRL.
Yeah, and I'll take it a layer deeper, too. Part of what being your own God means is defining your own terms of logic. The reality is, even though, of course, as a Catholic, I believe very strongly and firmly in Scripture and tradition, a lot of the moral rules that we're talking about here are just moral precepts that you can arrive at through pure
natural law.
Logic. Yeah, exactly. So, for example, you don't need to have divine revelation to know that the best place for a child to be raised is within a family, and the best way to ensure that that happens is if you're not promoting sex outside of marriage, etc. cetera, et cetera. I mean, so many of what we call right-wing or even religious principles are just basic, straightforward logic that you don't actually need scripture to inform you on.
You don't need commandments to honor your father and mother. And for the secular atheists out there who are like, I don't care about the commandments, then I'll throw it to Tony Stark in Captain America Civil War, when they discovered that Bucky Barnes killed Tony Stark's mom, and Captain America says it wasn't him, it's not his fault, and he says, I don't care, he killed my mom. You don't need scripture to explain to a man that he loves his mother and would kill someone who dare harm his family. And the reason for it is basic logic and also rooted in science. When human beings survive, they are proving to reality that their strategy worked. When they have kids, they are proving to reality that they have survived beyond themselves. So when the child honors and trusts in their parents, they are inheriting survival traits. This is science, but it's also in scripture. But there are people who, again, they reject anything that exists in a right-wing tradition because it is tradition, I suppose, or because they assume it's derived from nothing.
Well, yeah, and in reality is a reminder to everyone that there is something higher than you that exists outside of you that transcends you. And leftists resent that because their whole philosophy depends on the idea that you can speak reality into existence, that what you believe and what you say you make your own reality and you make your own meaning. And when reality hits them in the face, that makes them go crazy.
They call it manifesting.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of friends who are like, manifesting things, and I'm like, bro, you're not like Ian thinks he can make it rain.
I mean, even at the political
Babylon
level,
B manifests stuff by writing things in our headlines, and they come true.
That is true.
Each other.
You guys are, gonna discover a new religion here.
But no, I mean, even at the political level, obviously they don't discuss manifesting, but they'll talk about self-ID, which is essentially the same thing. I'm just a woman because I've said I'm a woman. Now, one of the funny things about self-ID is it inherently collapses in on itself. It's an absurdity. It's actually a logical contradiction, because if I were to say that I identify as a woman, right? Well, what do they say? Well, I didn't just become a woman. I've been a woman my whole life. Okay, so when I identified as a man, I wasn't really a man. So you're saying that my self-ID isn't always accurate.
Right. There's no logic.
Yeah, there's zero logic, but it actually, like, self-ID literally refutes itself.
Speaking of which, who's that guy that recently came out? He said
Josh Sider.
He faked being a transgender person for like 6 months.
We actually have a camera guy filming the whole thing. I mean, we knew. I think a lot of people kind of had an idea, but we had actually ended up talking to him because he came on the show, and he said it was a social experiment where he was trying to prove the hypocrisy and gullibility of the left. So it was an absurdist character where he's like obviously a ripped guy who goes to the gym with chest hair and facial hair but wearing lipstick, and he has these funny bits where he's like, I said to the man out on the date with me that I think the man should pay, and I pushed the check to him, and then he says, okay, then you should pay, and pushed it back, and that was rude.
That's a wrap on Timcast IRL, and wow, did we just hit peak absurdity. Joy Reid seriously thinks having kids ties into some fascist conspiracy. What's next? Breathing as a government-controlled activity. I mean, Joy Reid really has a gift for taking the most basic human instinct, like having a family, and twisting it into some dystopian narrative. But here's the kicker. By her logic, she's basically calling all of human history fascist. Because people have been having kids for thousands of years. Guess that makes cavemen the OG fascists in Joy Reid's world. And of course, Tim Pool and the crew didn't hold back on Timcast IRL. The team broke down how the left's anti-family agenda plays right into their power grab, because in Joy Reid's twisted logic, a strong family threatens the almighty state. But isn't she the one pushing for more government control over, everything? It's almost too ironic to be real. At the end of the day, it seems like Joy Reid just wants chaos, fewer families, more state interference, less freedom. You gotta laugh at how deep into the mental gymnastics she's fallen. And the fact that Timcast IRL is calling it out, it's a reality check this madness desperately needed. But hold on, if you think this was insane, just wait. Click the link at the bottom left for the after show carnage where things get even crazier. If Joy Reid can turn family values into fascism, who knows what we'll uncover next? Trust me, you don't want to miss it.